Hi, and welcome to this week's edition of the Butler Beat. I'm Krista Miller, and joining me are Officer Andrew Ryan, Assistant Chief of the Butler University Police Department, and Sarah Barnes-Diaz, the Coordinator for Health Education and Outreach Programs and one of Butler's victim advocates, and they're here to talk about sexual violence awareness. Thank you for joining today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Can you first talk about the dangers of sexual violence on a college campus?
Well, this is a very vulnerable time for women when they're at a college age and a college campus. Statistically, 1 in 4 females will be sexually assaulted during their 4 years on campus. So the numbers bear that that's potentially a dangerous time for them. So with that being the case, and newfound freedoms, maybe some decision choices as far as alcohol and drugs, really can set up a kind of a bad mixture for females on college campuses. Now, that's not to say that college campuses are a place for predators, but it's just a time for heightened awareness for females on campus as far as making good decisions and good decision choices.
Okay.
I think in addition to that, one thing I might add is that college is kind of unique in the sense that for the first time, the social space, the social living space, might be very close to the sleeping living space. And that, I think, is a really unique characteristic of a college campus. So the place where you're mixing and mingling with friends is often the place that you're sleeping and going back to at the end of the night, too. And so sometimes with that kind of new environment, we can see some difficulty.
Okay. What kinds of cases do you deal with on Butler's campus?
I think with the Victim Advocate Program, we talk with students who maybe might find themselves in a situation where they know they've been taken advantage of sexually. Maybe they said no and the other party did not respect their wishes. Other times there are cases where it might be a little bit less clear and there might be some question about whether or not consent was given. And we can kind of talk through that situation and still make sure that that student receives help. Other times it might be a friend or an RA or a faculty member calling on behalf of a student who's maybe shared something with them that has raised some concern.
Within the police department, we work very closely with the Student Affairs Division in investigating cases. Now, we have to understand that first and foremost, the survivor and the well-being of the survivor is what we work towards getting them help. We have a unique position where we can either investigate for criminal prosecution with the consent of the survivor, which is something we encourage them to do. And we also can work with it through the adjudication process through Dean Stevens. As far as individual cases, I can't speak directly to those, but we've had situations where it's someone who they knew. It was an acquaintance situation, and we've had situations where it's someone they may have just met and they didn't know, and they got put in a position where they didn't want to give consent, and it was given, and it escalated to a point where an assault took place. So, unfortunately, I hate to say this, but in the majority of the cases that we investigate involving either sexual violence or sexual assault, alcohol or drugs is a factor. Mm-hmm. And so, as I mentioned earlier, we need to educate our students about the dangers of alcohol consumption, and we have frank discussions with them about, hey, I'm not here to judge what you do, but understand alcohol is a contributing factor. It's the #1 date rape drug in America, and you can't make good decisions and good choices if you're impaired. So, it's a tough sell sometimes. So,
yeah. Well, what do you do in your departments to what kind of programs do you have to kind of promote awareness about sexual violence?
Within the police department, I think our biggest program is a self-defense class for women called Rape Aggression Defense, and it's a class that we teach as part of the physical well-being program here at the university. We teach it once a semester, myself and Officer Lauren Wilbur. Very challenging course. It's a way for us to get one-on-one with the students and really explore the nuances of what sexual assault is and how to defend oneself. That's our biggest program. Of course, we try to work with Sarah's office on programming it at the smaller level. We also try to have a couple other courses throughout the semester we can open for the general public. But so that's probably the biggest push that we make as far as providing awareness and prevention.
Okay.
And I think through the Victim Advocate Program and with a couple of the peer education groups on campus, the goal is really to raise awareness that this time frame is a time frame where students are more, sexual assault is more prevalent in our community. And so we want students to be able to identify what a sexual assault is and what it means and the effects that it can have on a person or on multiple people. And so, it's important to raise awareness, but it's also important to teach students the things that they can do and that we all can do to help prevent sexual assault. And so having really frank conversations about consent and the importance of any sexual encounter being consensual and really defining that for students is something that I work hard to do, and I know Andy does as well through BUPD. And we also talk about the role that friends can play in helping to prevent sexual assault, because these often don't happen in a vacuum. The situation can often start where there's lots of people around, and so there are social cues and kind of red flags that we can all be aware of, and when we see those things, we all need to feel responsible to step in and do what we can to prevent the situation from ever occurring. And then the final piece is just to offer support for survivors. We have a counseling and consultation center on campus which does a wonderful job counseling students who have been affected by sexual violence. But there are lots of students on campus who maybe just have had a boundary crossed and haven't identified it as a sexual assault. But we want students to know that we do have folks on campus or off campus that they can talk to about that, and that we understand that that can have a real impact on a person's life and on their future relationships.
Okay, so you mentioned educating people as to what sexual violence is. How else can students stay safe and prevent sexual assault on campus?
Well, the first thing that I would suggest or recommend to students is trust your instincts. Everyone has a sixth sense. It's stronger in women, studies show, than in men. But men tend to follow their instincts. Women tend to suppress them or ignore them. Understand that you are responsible for your own personal safety. BUPD or no one in the university can protect you. You have to make good decisions, be aware of your surroundings, use the buddy system if you're going to be out socializing. Especially the beginning of campus, understand it's a new environment. Sarah had mentioned that. So, take things slow. Report suspicious activity. Again, don't ignore things that appear to be obvious. And Sarah brought up a good point. We need to protect ourselves. Students need to watch out for one another. If they see something that's inappropriate, they need to stand up and say, this is inappropriate. So, we need to do a better job at the police department working with men on how to recognize signs and be peers for men to tell them, hey, this is unacceptable and you shouldn't be doing this. So. But again, I feel very fortunate being here at Butler because I think Butler is a great community. We have a great student body, a very committed faculty and staff. People just need to just slow down a little bit and understand the risks associated with decisions that they make, and try to understand that you're going to sometimes make decisions that aren't the best decisions, but you need to be held accountable if they're the incorrect decisions and learn from those.
I think Andy brought up some great points about using the buddy system. That is something that I think we've all been talking about probably since we were in kindergarten, and it's something that is very important. I know I've dealt with a lot of cases, and I would imagine you have as well, where there's a friend or others involved in the situation who may come seek support afterwards because of the role that they feel like they maybe could have played to help prevent that assault. And so we want to empower students to be firm as a friend, and to make sure that they're doing what they can to help keep their friends safe.
Right. Okay, well, thank you so much, Officer Ryan and Sarah, for joining us today. We're going to hear about what's going on in the Jordan College of Fine Arts, and then we're going to come back and hear from two students who work with Sarah Barnes and gear programs on Butler's campus. Thanks and welcome back. Joining me now is Jessie O'Neill, who works with GEAR, and Sarah Barnes. So can you tell me a little bit about GEAR and what it does to promote sexual violence awareness?
Sure. Well, GEAR stands for Greeks as Educators, Advocates, and Resources. So we're trying to really get into the Greek houses and, educate the Greek community about what what sexual, violence is and ways to prevent it on campus. PAWS also actually exists for the rest of campus, but getting into the Greek life, where, just to really promote it inside the Greek community. And we just really talk about, we have speakers come into campus, and we have Sarah comes and visits our chapter. She's come at least 2 times to my house, and I know to other fraternities that she has come pretty often to talk, and just things on campus. We promote any of the events going on campus, and we usually are there to have talk to any of the students on campus. So those are the things we do.
Okay, what made you want to become involved in GEAR?
Well, I actually had a friend, and when I was a couple years ago here at Butler that actually was sexually assaulted, so I wanted to make sure that it never happened to anyone else. So, because I know how much it really changed her life, so I want to make sure that didn't happen again.
Okay. How can other students get involved?
Sarah actually offers a class, and it's pass-fail class, and it's really how you get educated on all the GEAR things, and we just have a class that's 1 semester long, and it was really educational. We made posters. We started to learn about the events, and then she just had us come to things and listen in on past GEAR reps, and then we would get up and talk to the students too. So that's how, and just talking about it within your chapter, and hopefully looking at older Greek members to educate the newer ones. So.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Now here's Bree with what's going on this weekend at Butler.
Thanks, Krista. As we lead up to the Halloween holiday, there is certainly plenty to keep Butler students busy. For all of you soccer fans, be sure to stop by the Butler Bowl at 7 p.m. on Wednesday, October 26th, to watch the men's soccer team take on the Cleveland State Vikings. The Vikings are currently ranked #1 in the Horizon League standings. If you're looking for a good scare in lieu of the Halloween season, look no further than the annual Lambda Chi Alpha and Alpha Phi Haunted House. The event will take place at Lambda and begins on Friday, October 28th and goes through Sunday, October 30th. The Butler volleyball team has quite the busy weekend with 2 home matches this upcoming weekend. Stop by Hinkle Fieldhouse to cheer on the Dogs Friday, October 28th at 7 p.m. as they play the #3 ranked Valparaiso Crusaders. There is definitely no shortage of athletic events as the Butler women's soccer team challenges Loyola on Friday, October 28th at 7 p.m. at the Butler Bowl. Be sure to come and cheer them on. Lastly, and certainly not least, the weekend events are wrapped up with the volleyball team's Saturday matchup against UIC at 4 p.m. in Hinkle Fieldhouse. This game is Senior Day, where the team will honor their only senior. Come and show your support for her and the rest of the team.
Thanks for tuning in this week to the Butler Beat.
Be sure to tune in next week for a Halloween-themed edition.
I'm Krista Miller.
And I'm Bree Seaver.
Stay classy, Butler.